Right, in Sky Bet League One, over the weekend, 5 games, 2 of them matches that happen, 0-0 draws, but still, obviously, plenty of intrigue. And more broadly, George, it's a pretty incredible division at the moment. There are 16 teams separated by 8 points from 1st to 16th. There's also already some kind of funkiness in terms of matches played. Like Stevenage and Barnsley have only played 13 games. Quite a few have played 16. And most of them are in between that, 14 or 15. So if you're looking at PPG, for example, Stevenage are actually top of League One, even if they are 6th in the table and currently seemingly on pretty poor form. And that just shows how tight it all is. We do have, in terms of actual points, now joint league leaders, because with Stockport's game postponed, Lincoln City had a chance to go joint top with them. They did so by beating Donny by 2-1.
Yeah, they did. And, more frustration for Doncaster, because I'm pretty sure that Grant McCann will look at this as another game where his team were by no means second best. Could have come away with something from the game and have ended up being beaten. Having said that, Okoronkwo, who scored the first goal for Lincoln with a really well taken header, did miss one of the chances of the season, probably one of the misses of the season so far, with the ball coming across to him and him kind of with an open goal gaping, albeit 12 yards out or so, and passed at the wrong side of the post. But Donny had loads of chances themselves, and they're really struggling to finish them at the moment. Billy Sharp had one that was cleared off the line. Clifton had a chance early on in the game. The goal, when it came, was a Robbie Gott's own goal with a kind of the ball ricocheting into his path.
You've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, for Lincoln, after Hanlon had scored a very well taken goal into the bottom right hand corner. Very strange bit of defending from Matty Pearson in the run up to the Gott's goal, where he kind of headed the ball back into the danger area from about 6 yards out, which is unlike him. But yeah, and I think for Doncaster to get an equaliser away from home with 20 minutes or so to go, only to then concede within a minute, will be immensely frustrating to them. So disappointing for them. Lincoln continue their great start to the season up to 2nd now. As you say, PPG table would have them a fair bit further down than that, because they are the only team down to 11th who've played 16 games, with most of the teams playing 15, 14 or even 13. But right now they sat level on points and goal difference with Stockport, only 2nd due to goals scored, and a good way to forget about what was a terrible 3-0 defeat away from home in their last league game, albeit, as I say, maybe some red flags in the performance, given this is the Lincoln side who, when they're good, are so solid defensively, whereas Donny definitely had chances within the game, but kind of all score lines to score. Yeah, and Donny, it's such a head scratcher at the moment. I think we mentioned on the betting show that it does seem, although Hanlon played and scored here, but has had very little impact so far this season, the amount of workload being put on Billy Sharp just seems like such bad planning. And it's Molineux and it's Gibson and it's Middleton as the wide forwards, and they are finding it harder than they did at League 2 level, shall we say, albeit all, lively in patches. I think all of this stuff probably could have been predicted. It's not easy to get promoted and massively improve your attacking options. I'm not even saying that you should do. I think there is absolute reason to broadly stick with your core. But right now it does look like Donny, in terms of goal threats, are really struggling. The confidence is clearly dropped, and that's being reflected in chances being missed. It's being reflected in, the goal really sums up where both teams are at the moment. A long throw that they let bounce, poor defending, a really good save by Lototala that then hits the other defender or the midfielder Gotts and goes in. It just feels like that sort of point at the moment for Donny. And I think based on their last 2 performances against Lincoln and against Barnsley, it's worth pointing out that they're not an absolutely horrendous football team. They're not getting dominated by any means. And if a bit of luck goes their way that injects a bit of confidence that helps them execute a bit better in both boxes, the games could easily be falling their way. And I think McCann's got enough credit in the bank for at least a few more games. But 2 points from 9 league games is a horror run that has them in relegation battle. With Lincoln, they've remained better longer into the season than maybe I thought they would. I think they deserve a lot of credit for that. You're right to point out that this probably wasn't their best defensive performance, but defensive quality, and in particular their shape out of possession, how hard you generally have to work to create a good chance against them, is a huge strength of theirs. And then at the top of the pitch, Skubala is still running the kind of 4-striker lineup that we've seen throughout this season. And tactically, that is very unusual, and I think it's one of the most notable things that anyone's done in League One and League Two this season. Rob Street, right-sided forward. Collins with Draper off him. And here, Okoronkwo, who's a sort of youth team striker by trade, still trying to work out what he's going to be at senior level, was playing off the left. But you see him attack that cross and head home from the penalty spot. You realise that when the ball was out wide with Derikwa, Okoronkwo is coming centrally as well, which means if you get good delivery in the box, you've got Collins, Draper and Okoronkwo. Street, if you're on the other side and you're crossing from the left, you've got Street attacking the back post. He had a goal disallowed in the first half, back post header with a push in the back. You can absolutely see the danger in having this sort of setup. And it's really interesting to me. And clearly it's working pretty well in terms of the points tally of the team this season. And I think Skubala just deserves a lot of credit for how he, as a lot of managers do, seems to be growing in quality and in kind of authority and in decision making as he gets more experienced in his first senior management role. So a great weekend for Lincoln City. They lead off the pod in League One this week. We move on to Burton, because they are very worthy of second top billing, beating Blackpool by 1-0. So Ian Ebbott's winning start as Blackpool manager coming to an end. And it's not a huge surprise, because this is a top half Burton Albion team officially right now, 12th in the table, who in their last 8 games have won 5 of them, have drawn 2 and lost just the 1, have played some impressive opposition in that time. And George, they're 12th in the table, having played 10 of their 16 games against top half teams. So schedule-wise this season, Burton have had it very, very difficult. And I think it's time for some serious Gary Bowyer love. Because since he joined, I think his first 5 league games he didn't pick up a win, as he sort of worked out what approach he was going to take to get Burton out of the relegation zone. He obviously landed on something that worked so well that they flew out the relegation zone. Miracle survival last season. And now top half in League One, 3 and a bit months into this season. The last 10 months, only Stockport, Leyton Orient, Bolton and Lincoln have picked up more League One points than Burton. And it just reflects what an incredible job he's done, taking a group of players, not stand out in terms of squad depth, quality for this level, very quickly working out a system, and players are playing in specific roles within it to get the best out of them. And it strikes me there's a couple of headliners. Ex-Geesley has been mentioned a lot on this podcast this season, Jake Beasley. Initially for the fact that his finishing was not great, and that was costing Burton in tight games where they were missing a lot of chances. But you get yourself into situations like this, and I think there's always an interesting discussion to have about strikers who can't finish versus strikers who are just streaky finishers. And I think that's Mr. Beasley. Thumping header to win this game for them, his second goal in consecutive weekends. Bradley Collins in goal made some big saves in this game. And he was highlighted by Hugh in a piece that he wrote for NTT20.com about League One's sort of standout performances from a statistical point of view to start the season. Hugh writing, it's not just that Collins has the division's highest save percentage, he's saving good shots as well. Based on expected goals on target, which uses a shot on target's placement to estimate the likelihood of it going in or being saved, Collins has prevented Burton from conceding an extra 6.6 goals, which is easily the standout numbers in the league. That was before the weekend, so very, very good timing for that piece. An excellent piece from you on NTT20.com. But Kyron Lofthouse was in that piece as well. Kyron Lofthouse was in that piece as a standout wing-back, and Kyron Lofthouse was the one that got on the ball on the right-hand side, beat his man, and delivered the cross for Beasley to head in. Hugh writing that Kyron Lofthouse, who I don't think previously was known as a marauding, dribbling wing-back, has put in more chance-creating carries than anyone in the division, apart from Amario Cozier-Dewberry and Glenn Middleton, who are obviously both out-and-out wingers. So those are some star players at the moment. Webster gets a lot of praise as well. It's a good manager. It's a good system, playing good football at the moment. And pretty impressed with all things Burton Albion at the moment. Orient played Exeter. George, 2-1 win. Bit of a topsy-turvy game.
If you're a referee, what do you think is the one thing that you are looking for when you're going to referee a game?
Quiet afternoon.
Yeah.
Very few penalty incidents would be ideal.
Just like ideally a really quiet afternoon, very few people shouting in your face. And the first half of this game was basically Leyton Orient players and Leyton Orient fans just screaming at Ruben Ricardo for pretty much the whole thing. And I think he'll be quite relieved. Well, I wouldn't say that, but at least the heat was taken off him by what ended up happening in the second half. Because in the first half, Orient had a penalty shout rejected. I think it was the right call. It looked to me like there was a handball, but the defender was being dragged down as he handballed it. And then a penalty was given to Exeter after Sean Clare, who was probably the angriest of the Orient players about the decision not being given in the first half, was then adjudged to have fouled. Camera angle, you can't really see it. It looks pretty soft from the removed area that we're looking at, but Wareham converted it well. Then Orient had another penalty shout after that, which looked like a penalty to me. Yeah. And Ricardo said no, thank you very much, which led to Sean Clare getting so angry he was booked for screaming in the referee's face. But the second half was a different story. Idris El Mazouni scored to make it 1-1. Kind of put through 1-on-1. Keeper kind of parried it back into him and it dribbled into the goal.
A real Icarus concession that for Exeter.
Yeah.
Like, just giving it away, playing out from the back.
Yeah.
Macmillan was robbed by El Mazouni. The Exeter fans really fixated on Ryan Sweeney coming off in this game. I think he came off around the 70th minute when they were 1-0 up.
70 bang on, yeah.
Sweeney is their senior, well, he's their leader from that point of view, but he's also, to my eyes, one of their more comfortable in possession defenders.
For sure.
And them giving the ball away when 1-0 up in a difficult away game, like, it's difficult with style of play. I try not to focus on only the negatives of playing short from goal kicks, because actually in doing so you're kind of missing that almost every team does this to some extent. Yeah. Maybe not with every single goal kick, but a lot of teams mix it up with what they do, and there are lots of benefits to bringing the opposition onto you and then having more space to play into. What I would say is, with Wareham at the top of the pitch, with Aitchison, and was Cole still on at that point, or maybe they'd made another sub?
Cole's still on.
Exeter don't have very good targets for long passes forward, and I think this is where the pragmatism of trying to see out a game with 20 minutes to go maybe would suggest that not. Yeah, I don't know the answer.
Not in the squad.
Yeah, they played it short. They gave it away. They conceded an equaliser, and then they lose. And I just think that is really tough to take. Even if the Sweeney, I know that the Sweeney sub, I think his minutes are being managed because he's come back from injury. So it wasn't just the case of whipping him off.
Well, I reckon if Richie Wellens was listening to this, he'd say, Ali,
yeah,
what else happened in the 70th minute?
Would he say...
I brought on Tariq Backinson.
Yeah.
I brought in Azim Abdullahi. I brought in Ollie O'Neill.
Yeah.
And then we scored 2 goals in 10 minutes. So stop talking about Exeter, talk about me. And Tariq Backinson was the player that scored the second goal, and what a finish it was.
Oh, yeah.
Why is it that sometimes the ball bounces out of the net like it's like a springboard? Because Backinson met this first time, the side-footed bouncing ball into the far corner, and the ball ricocheted out as if it was a springboard, which gave the goal a great aesthetic. But yeah, 2 goals in 5 minutes. 2 midfielders scoring them, one of them having just come on as a substitute. It meant that a very heated and angry Orient crowd were then delighted to see their team pick up an important 3 points. Just a pretty topsy-turvy season at the moment for Orient, who, you know, they lose 4-1 away from home against Wycombe and then win this 2-1 kind of sums it up for them right now. It's hard to really see them. It's really hard to really predict where they're going to end up this season, but they're obviously already in a strong position now than they were, or similar position to last season, where they ended up finishing as a playoff beaten finalist. So when they're good, they're very good, and their games are certainly exciting.
Yeah. What are they? Second top scorers in the league? Joint top scorers in the league?
And I think that they conceded the most goals.
That would make sense.
Joint most with Argyle. Yeah.
I'd love to see them kick on now, and unless I'm missing something major, I don't see any particular reason why they wouldn't or can't. Now, reaching the playoffs from this point, just because they did it last season, is a level of expectation that I probably wouldn't put on them. But given how close the league is, as discussed, still only 8 points separating first and 16th, any team that puts together a run could easily put themselves into top 6 contention practically by 2 months' time at this point. I really like the look of the 11 on paper now. I think there's been a lot of injuries and working things out, and how's the new version of this team going to look. I think Connolly off the left with Adaramola providing most of the width down the left side, and Connolly able to kind of basically tuck in and play as a second striker. With Ballard up top, who I like the look of a lot. Mitchell started wide right, and it'd be great to see him stay fit and get a run in the team, because we know he can be a dangerous player at this level. Wellens, you've mentioned a few times, Charlie Wellens, that is, as developing quite nicely as a 10. But it's not just that, it's the fact that Karoma off the bench, Ollie O'Neill off the bench, Lloyd is finally kind of ready and hopefully can help take some of the load off Ballard as a more of a physical option at the top of the pitch. Like, it's decent. And they are already joint top scorers in the league, even though they're in the bottom half. So can they sort out the defence?
Exactly, that's the concern.
They've got a more settled goalkeeper situation now with Cahill. That's his role.
Yeah.
He's taken Simpkins' gloves off him. Well, he's probably got his own gloves, but he's taken, metaphorically, Simpkins' gloves.
Beckles came out here after a pretty poor display at Wycombe.
Yeah. The back four needs to get settled. Sean Clare and Elmiz as the central mids, with Backinson coming off the bench. Like, I just like what I'm seeing on paper here, and I'd like to see them kick on, and I don't see why they couldn't or shouldn't with a really good manager who's proven at this level that he can get teams really fizzing in the second half of the season. 2-0 nils. Luton 0, Rotherham 0 was a match that happened. Our mate, journalistic legend Dan Story, was at the game, writing a story, no doubt, and I think possibly about Rotherham. We'll find out. Daniel's an excellent writer. You should be reading his stuff on iNews. Not a good game, he said. A bad game. A very bad game. Thought Rotherham started pretty well, but their last shot of the game was in the 23rd minute. And Rotherham had a shot for every 140 completed passes in the first 55 minutes. That's what the game looked like. It was very Luton possession-y without penetration-y. And I think if that's how Jack Wilshere wants to play in games like this at home, it's going to take the fans a bit of getting used to, because that's not how Luton have looked mostly over the last few years. And if they're going to get used to it, they're going to want to see their team create more clear-cut chances, because, Rotherham defended pretty obdurately here. They also had a moment where Rotherham were clean through, and the ref didn't play advantage, brought it back for a free kick. It wasn't even one of those where I'd give the ref the benefit of the doubt. It was quite clear that Rotherham were in behind, and he still blew up, which right. I really didn't understand and would have wound me up no end if I was a Rotherham fan. But I think the result they have to be pleased with, the fact they're 7 unbeaten and really building nicely on that front, they can be very, very happy with. And then the other 0-0 was Port Vale against Wycombe. I have no idea how this game was 0-0, because, being honest, Wycombe looked very good and they created quite a few big chances and they didn't take them. Onyedinma continues, to me, just to look like one of the top attacking players in the division this season. And Wycombe should have won this game. There's no doubt about that in my mind. Having said that, Vale had a goal disallowed, very marginal offside, difficult to say from the angle that I've seen. There was an amazing save from Norris, from Walters. I was going to say at 0-0. The whole game was 0-0. So it all happened at 0-0. Take that as read. And so, on a different day, could have kind of gone either way. For Vale, this is obviously another blank fired. A game in which they've not created absolutely nothing, but execution's massively lacking. It also, and I watched a lot of this game, it looked to me like possibly a continuation of what's happened quite a lot recently, where they looked fine for like 20, 30 minutes. And I think they had like 8 of the first 10 shots in the game. None of them massive chances, but they were in it. They were kind of competing. And then they are just tailing off in games. And that is obviously very, very concerning right now. As for Wycombe, it looks to me like Duff only made 2 subs in this game. And one of them, McNeely, came on in the last 5 minutes, which makes me kind of think that Duff has pretty much nailed down his starting 11 at Wycombe. And they're obviously playing really well. But maybe he's not in love with the fringe lot at the moment. He doesn't seem to, or just based on this game, doesn't seem like he loves his options off the bench. And that'll be something to watch in the January transfer window, because Wycombe about as active as any team in the last few transfer windows. But maybe their wonderful new manager, who's doing very, very well and probably has earned himself a couple of January transfers, he might want to flip some of those and make some changes. So, 1 loss in 13 now for Wycombe since Duff's arrival is a sensational start.
Just something on Darren Moore as well, because I know off the back of your betting show pick, talking about how unlucky we can perceive Port Vale to be, a lot of Port Vale fans replied saying, I was with you a couple of weeks ago, now I think it's gone beyond the point of no return and that Moore won't be able to turn us around. My assumption is that Moore will be given more time to do so, and even though for the most part, you and I ignore cup games on this pod, but I do think it's interesting to note that given they're still in the EFL Trophy and given they are still in the FA Cup, Darren Moore's next 7 games, 5 of them are at home against Argyle, who are bottom of League One, home to Barnsley in the EFL Trophy, who are again a team in a cup competition I'll obviously want to do well in. Home to Bristol Rovers in the FA Cup, a team who are really struggling in League Two. Home to Bradford in League One, and then at home to Peterborough, another team in the relegation zone. So it feels like this is a massive opportunity for Darren Moore to, in 5 home games, all of which are winnable, to show that he is capable of and still the man to be Port Vale manager. Similarly, probably nowhere to hide as well, because if he can't turn performances around, I'd be surprised if he makes it to Christmas.
Yeah, it felt to me like a big moment in the game was Marvin Johnson picking up an injury. They play a system with wing-backs where the ability of those wing-backs to get up and down and ideally deliver some quality as well is going to make a big difference to how dangerous they can be playing in a 3-5-2 system. Johnson coming off and so few other options on the bench in those areas meant that Jesse Deborah, centre-back, came on, and then they had Hall, Hennigan, Humphreys and Deborah on the pitch, and just that you're just necessarily going to lose. It's just an issue of square pegs and round holes there. So for me, I would have maybe preferred to see Shipley come on and play left wing back just as a natural left footer, someone who I think's played that role a couple of times before, but he was held back until the 80th minute. So yeah, Moore and Vale are in a really tough spot at the moment. I obviously got a fair amount of pelters for the betting show clip that I put out, as did you for Grimsby Chesterfield. It was quite exciting to for one weekend only kind of experience what it's like to be one of those podcasts that kind of gets called an idiot consistently in their replies, and I mean I hated it.
It felt very 2017 to be told that football's played on grass, not spreadsheets.
Yeah. The funny thing is that the Vale, I had a lot of very angry Wycombe fans, which I was a bit confused about because in the clip and in the betting show reasoning for picking Vale, it was 99% about Vale, and I even said I haven't got anything bad to say about Wycombe. I think they're a good team, and they didn't win here. Let's be clear. There's one sentence I would change in what I said about Vale, and unfortunately, it was kind of the strongest first line about good teams win games, even if they haven't won many games up to this point. It was terrible. Just a really stupid line that probably didn't make much sense on the pod, and certainly if you're coming to this pod for the first time and that's the first thing you see online, very much me probably not putting my best foot forward. So yes, a lot to learn there in terms of clipping up things from the pod, and yeah, an interesting experience. And yeah, I think it's fair to say that it was really good to hear from a lot of Vale fans taking what I said seriously and interacting with it seriously and saying, look, what you're saying isn't a million miles away. We have played pretty well in a lot of games at 0-0, but what you're missing is what seems to be happening time and time again in the second half when we go behind and heads drop and the manager can't seem to get a grip on that. I really enjoyed that aspect of it, so thank you to the Vale fans who kind of responded in good faith. So that was the end of a pretty skinny slate of League One action. League Two to follow.